Everybody's asking, where's the housing market going, right? We've had a whole lot of turbulence in the housing market, and with interest rates and inventory issues, what's happening and where are we going? All right, gang, so this is something I don't really love doing, but I've been getting so many questions on it by clients, I felt like I had to record a video and respond to it. I was on record mid last year, mid 2022, when we saw interest rates spiking. I said there's going to be a sting here. So there was going to be a sting, and folks were going to fall out of the market, buyers and sellers both, right? The sting of the rise in interest rates that was going to prevent houses from ultimately selling for lots of reasons. I was right on half of what happened next. I said that it would take about 6 months for that sting to wear off and ultimately for homes to begin selling again. Because the truth of the matter is that humans, we don't like to deal with uncomfort or discomfort or pain. And so, yes, there's going to be a sting with the rise in interest rates, but eventually the reasons that made us want to buy a house, we got married, we got divorced, kids grew up and have moved out of the house, or we had another kid and now space is tight. We're only willing to put up with that discomfort for so long before we want to fix it. And so the change happens when the pain of status quo becomes greater than the pain of change. And so it would take a little while for folks to get used to the new normal with interest rates, but eventually they would, and homes would start selling again. So what actually happened was buyers did. They came back into the market. They got over that sting of the rise in interest rates, and they came back into the market. What I missed, though, what I failed to predict correctly, was that sellers would hold on a lot longer, and it makes total sense, right? I mean, the buyers aren't necessarily losing anything. They didn't have the interest rate to begin with, the low interest rate, and so they just had to get used to what the new monthly payment may be. Sellers, on the other hand, current homeowners, we had a low interest rate. We had an interest rate of 2.5, for instance, and we were going to have to go to the next one, take on, say, 7.5, and that's a pretty tough pill to swallow sometimes. So it has taken sellers longer to get back into the market than, say, their buyer counterparts. What does this mean? So we're still seeing homes that, for every home that hits the market, we've got 10 buyers for it. There's lots of buyers there for the current listings. But inventory is very, very low. Now, at some point, that backlog of homes is going to hit the market, right? The homes that would normally be in a normal cycle of homes hitting the market. Again, life changes happening. The folks that would normally be listing their home, they're holding off. At some point, that logjam is going to break free, and there's going to be a maybe flood of listings that hits the market. I suspect that's going to be when interest rates start to fall, because then folks, the sting isn't quite so bad for folks who are going from a 2.5% interest rate to maybe then a 5.5 rather than a 7.5 or 8. So when interest rates begin to fall, or even the promise, it begins clear that we're going to be on a general downward trajectory, that's the point at which I think a lot of these backlog of listings are going to hit the market. Now the question is will that flood of listings actually cause inventory to go way up and therefore prices to go down? I suspect the answer to that is no. And the reason for that is as interest rates go down, we will actually see additional buyers coming into the market. We have a lot of buyers in the market now. Again, the number of home buyers in the market has been less affected than the number of home sellers in the market to date. But I do suspect that when interest rates go down, we will see additional buyers come into the market. And so you have to figure, when we've got 10 buyers for every one listing currently, you would have to have a huge influx in listings hitting the market to just begin leveling out. Never mind create so much inventory that the inventory builds and builds and builds and causes prices to actually go down, if that makes sense. So in other words, we're in such a deep hole with low inventory that we would have to not only fill that hole, but then add on top of it for prices to actually begin falling. So I think that is really unlikely. Ultimately, when I see this happening, I think, as we sit here in late third quarter going into fourth quarter 2023. I believe that the interest rates are actually get a little worse before they get better. We may actually touch 8% that is. But I think we are nearing the peak. I think by the end of the year, rates will have already begun to fall, and I think that will continue through all of 2024, and potentially even through much of 2025. So I think that by the end of 2024, we may be looking at rates as low as possibly even 6%. And by the end of 2025, I've heard estimates that rates could be, getting close to 5%. So that's where the housing market is going, guys. The number of transactions happening currently is very low, but it's an inventory problem. There's low inventory, tons and tons of demand. So that's why, even though there's a much smaller number of homes being sold, prices are still going up because low inventory, high demand, that's economics 101, prices will go up. I think that's going to continue. I think that the rate of that will actually increase into 2024. Home values are still going to go up, but that's where the market is currently. That's where the market is headed, in my opinion. Save this video and check my prediction here in a year.